earliest memories, that would be down there when, during the Depression years, I used to go down there when I was about 8 or 9 and help Dad with the, I suppose it might have been more of a nuisance than a help actually, but yeah, we used to go out and run around putting the stooks in the rows. He used to drive through to pick up the hay in the paddocks, you know. There's a big demand, of course, in those days for oaten hay for the chaff.
This building is a wonderful example of timber used as the main construction material. The roof structure is divided up between a series of trusses, timber trusses again, and then intermediate purlins, which take half of the span of the roof load. It's a wonderful example of the simplicity of construction that was used in that time, which is we've got a large column with the main roof structure, the truss sitting across that is in the column and then the beam, and then the rest of it is sort of intermediate beams that sort of make up the rest of the load. The floor structure is rotting in parts, but for a building of this age it's in relatively good condition. The durability of it is really excellent for the time it's actually spent and the exposure that it's had to the elements over the years, and the general sort of foot traffic that it's had to deal with.
In 1964 was my first years down there at what we used to call as drapers. It was originally salters and drapers and then Permewans. The hay cutting was finished then. We never ever cut any more chaff there, but we did a lot of grain cleaning. We had the old clipped and graded wood machine, which is still in the shed down there. Then we had the new Hannaford machine, which has been sold since it closed up. Then we had the big crusher, a twin bag crusher. We used to crush somewhere around about 15 tonne of oats a day. They were distributed to Portland, Hayward, Koroit, Warrnambool, and some of the other horse owners around here. Had up to about 8 guys working there in the busy season.
Yeah, it would have been in the probably the early 70s when we worked down there during summer holidays, and so it was always really, I can remember it was always really hot, you know, in the shed, and there were quite a number of, we thought they were all old blokes, you know, working there, and they used to have the little fags, roll your own, hang out the side of their mouth, and they used to be there all day, you know. And it was a real hive of activity then. There was lots of, they used to crush oats, and so farmers would be bringing in grain and hay and whatever else, you know, and a lot of it would be processed there, so the mainly the oats would be crushed and then bagged up and sold in bags. So at the other end of the scale you get other people coming through, mainly farmers or people with horses, would come up to the landing there, and the oats and bags of oats and other grains will be just loaded into the back of their utes and trucks from there. And really the shed then didn't look much different to what it does today, except of course it was in a lot better nick. You know, the floor and everything was in a lot better nick, and it was weatherproof.
Alright, so we're now looking at the very southernmost of the building, which potentially could have been the original shed. It actually has some element of a heritage protection put on it by the local planning authority, and then the other 7 bays that are divided by a double brick firewall after bay number 3, is it? After the 3rd bay. They may have been added on at a different stage, and therefore this section of the building, for the reason I noted itself, has a particular heritage restriction on it, or heritage protection put on it.
The grain cleaning, the old wooden machine, it was known as one of the best ever made. It was made in Ballarat originally. It was all made of wood. It had belts and it had steel graders in it, but all the outside casing was all timber, all the chutes were timber, leather belts with, it didn't have an auger, it had cut lifts. It was very slow, you'd do about 100 bags a day, but oh, beautiful, beautiful job.
It's probably our first experience working with adults, I suppose, you know, and they sort of treated us like equals, you know, and they used to use us to climb up onto the top, because they used to stack all of the bags really high, you know, and because they had elevators to do all that, and they used to use us to climb up on top of the stacks and push the bags onto the elevators, you know, yeah. And alternatively, when they were stacking them, we'd be at the other end of the elevator on the stack, because they were too old to get up there, pretty much.
And your husband was, I think, the youngest
manager appointed in Victoria with those things. Yes, he was. Yes, yeah.
So
He really loved his job, and he sort of liked it. Because I know when I first sort of asked him about coming, he thought he'd just come and have a look and see what he thought about it, and didn't know whether he'd stay or not. But of course, then he did. He did like it, and so that was good actually. Yes. I think at the time we were living in Noble Park, I think it was. He was running one of the Permewans stores there or something, which was vastly different to here when we came here, and this one was just so different. Yes, yeah. When he first actually decided to go, well, he actually worked on for a little while. He thought he just sort of, they wanted him to sort of stay, and you know, because people were using that sort of thing, and he thought yes, he'd do that, but then he couldn't stand it after a while. He thought, no, I can't do this, because he wasn't in charge, and he just felt as though perhaps he was being more of a nuisance than a help. Well, that was only his version of it, though. But he just sort of thought, you know, because he'd always been in charge there, and then somebody else sort of, well, was in charge. He sort of just felt a bit strange about it all, and he thought, no, he's better if he left, I think, yes.
But health and safety in those days too, it was not heard of, you know. You run around on those stacks of grain, you know, be 20, 30 foot high, no edgings, no harnesses. The blokes would be smoking. There was nothing. There was belts running without guards on them. That is, in all my time there, I only seen one fella get slightly injured. He was tipping grain out of a bag into an auger, and the auger grabbed the bag and he tried to pull it out and pulled him in. He was lucky he let go just in time. But you can, odd fella might fall off a stack of hay or something sometimes, but nobody ever got hurt. Yeah.
Well, I suppose they were careful, or probably more careful now these days, because sometimes I think they have so much things with safety and things like that too. People aren't as careful as they should be, because they think, oh well, we're fine, nothing will happen here.
No, some of the fellas I worked with, they were real legends down there. I'll never forget one guy, Bernie Marnie. He turned up every morning with a shirt and tie on. He'd get changed, work all day, and he got changed, put a shirt and tie back on to go home again. Peter Hurley, he knew the grain side of things backwards. He was absolutely terrific on it. Arthur Ladd was another good one at it. They were real legends of their time.
A lot of good people went through there, I think, really, yes.
And of course you had the heat sort of coming down, and there was always a lot of dust and whatever floating around everywhere. And the old blokes would be sort of sucking all that in, you know, breathing all that in and fagging and coughing and there. And then they'd finish up at night and have a stubby and sit on the landing and have a stubby before they went home.
When they got to their later years, in their 70s plus, all of them had lung trouble, and it was all from the dust they'd worked in all their life. Some turned to cancer, some didn't, but they all had some type of lung problem. Yeah. Because sometimes in the shed you couldn't see from one end to the other for dust. You could taste it, you could eat it.
I had some photos taken with my husband and two girls down there years ago. I've always loved the old building. It's just been a great spot. A lot of people have photos for weddings taken there, family photos, and it's I don't know. I just like it. It's because it's so old, I think, and I like how it's all up and down. It's not straight. It's yeah, and it's just part of Hamilton to me. It's been there for many a long years, and I've seen a lot of photos taken, but not actually in the full length of it. So I decided one day that I would give it a whirl. I reckon I have taken at least 500 photos of it. And the photo that I've finally finished off with, there's 8 photos altogether in it to get it joined up to the way it is. A lot of hours and a lot of backwards and forwards down there to get it, right. So, but yeah, it's a lot of photos were taken because each time I went down, I'd come back and it just wasn't quite right. So I just kept going backwards and forwards until I got the final result that I wanted. When I heard that they were talking about pulling it down, I thought, oh, that's not a good idea. So I decided, right, I better try and get a decent photo of it. So that's what I done.
The old shed's now about all they use for is wedding photos.
Potentials for refurbishment would be where we're standing here in the rear section. Doesn't actually have a floor, so we're on the natural dirt, and I'd say probably around about 10% of the roof is completely missing. The roof sheeting and full external cladding is sort of getting towards the point of where it's really sort of had the end of its life. So whether that actually gets replaced or repaired in different parts will sort of go to the use of this building, whether it actually needing to be a fully enclosed space protected from the elements would mean that major refurbishments need to happen, as in replacing of pretty much all of the external cladding, including the roof sheeting. However, if it was to be a semi-indoor-outdoor use of a space, a natural floor maybe put into some kind of like a garden space.
They're of interest, I suppose, to some people, and they've got it. They've definitely got their own individual character, but they have no really sentimental value. I mean,
I've got mixed feelings about it. I'm frightened it might have gone too far. It would always been nicer. I remember there was about, say 15 years ago, there was a lady from Karamat wanted to set it up as an entertainment room. Now, I think if she could have done it then, when it wasn't run down as bad as what it is now, it could have been good for something like that. I don't know, but it was just a thought. But it has deteriorated a lot. It does need a lot of money spent on it, but it'd be still a pity to see it just disappear.
If it was to be fully refurbished and a lot of the external cladding replaced to shelter it, and it would become then a protected indoor space. It is quite a large volume of space, both in height and depth, so it would be suitable for large groups. Public use, there's not really much issue with getting access and egress compliant throughout the place. Everything's pretty much on the same level. There is one sort of step up into the rear of it, but that could be handled with a regular ramp or something. So disabled and ambulance care access would be pretty insignificant part of the project. It would be interesting to look at the size of the space and then to value that against what it would cost to build a building, a modern building in Hamilton, of this actual size. If you wanted a space that had this amount of volume in it, and how much that would actually cost, and therefore look at how much it would cost to refurbish it to a similar standard. And there probably would be, a saving of over 30% or something like that.